Hey, welcome back to See and Free Studio. This is Jennifer Langian. I'm so happy that you've joined us. This is the place where we come to talk about what makes us unique, special, and different. And I know today's guest is exactly that. I am so excited to introduce you to Sienna Jackson. She's an LA-based producer, founder, and executive with 10 years in entertainment, government, journalism, and grassroots organizing. She's worked with celebrities like Pharrell, Jay-Z, Gwen Stefani, U2, yes, U2, Eminem, and more on Academy Award and Golden Globe nominated music for film and TV. Sienna has founded Zoran Creative Strategy, a social enterprise consultancy offering partnerships campaigns for nonprofits, government, brands, and businesses, seeking to triple their bottom line by making a social impact. I am so excited to introduce you to Sienna Jackson. Welcome, Sienna.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited to have you here. So tell everyone a little bit about you, what you're doing in LA, and what you're doing with the Zoran Creative Strategy.
Oh boy, so I'll give you like the spark notes of my life.
Okay, good.
I was born and raised here, so I'm, LA, I would say LA native, but nowadays I avoid using the term native because I feel it's appropriative. So LA born and raised, I come from a family who always worked in entertainment. My dad's a director and producer. My mom was an artist, a camera operator, graphic designer. My sisters are in entertainment. And growing up, when I was really, really young, I thought, okay, I'll be the one black sheep that doesn't work in the entertainment industry. So I'll tell you how that went.
Yeah.
But, I started my college career at the age of 14. So I was 14 years old. I started taking classes at Pierce College. I was studying journalism. I was studying political science. And while I was there, I got really into, because for context, at the time when I was 14 years old, this was like tail end of the Bush years. Obama, I think, just about got elected. And the Arab Spring was happening. So I was writing about the Arab Spring. I was, communicating with people on the ground in that part of the world, like in Syria, in Egypt, like in Tahrir Square, and, talking to college students that were, trying to revolutionize their government and their world. And it was really inspiring to me. So when I was an impressionable teenager, I was writing about these geopolitical issues for my school paper. I was writing about public finance scandals, like the misappropriation of taxpayer dollars on my campus. I wrote about the honor killing of one of my own classmates and the cold case around his murder. So I was doing all this really serious reporting as a 15, 16, 17-year-old. And I thought, this is something I'm really good at. I like storytelling. I'm really interested in international relations. I could make a career out of this. And then a year later, when I was 17 years old, I got an internship in the music department at the Weinstein Company, of all places. So I was doing the plucky girl reporter thing by day, then working part-time as an intern at this film studio, which is, like a notorious film studio, and learning the music industry. My dad had been a musician. He was a drummer, so I always grew up loving music, but I didn't understand the business of it. So what ended up happening is I did an internship there. They invited me back again, and then they said, my boss at the time, Richard Glasser, was like, you're really, really smart. You're super young. You can you pick up things so quickly. Why don't you just work part-time as you're getting your degrees? And I was like, you know what? The recession had just happened. No one was leaving school to go right into a job. I was like, you know what? This is not the career path I was planning for music industry or entertainment, but I'll go for it because it's an opportunity and I could probably learn a lot of different things I never could have imagined learning. And that's exactly what happened. So from 17 through 21, I was getting my second undergraduate degree, this time from Pepperdine, continuing to follow journalism, continuing to report on world affairs as a plucky girl reporter, working part-time at the studio. I started learning about copyright policy. I started working on, the government affairs bit came in because I already was well-spoken in areas of just politics and policy. I got invited to join the LA Music Leaders Roundtable, which was working with Congresswoman Judy Chu and a bipartisan congressional caucus under the House Judiciary. So I was working on copyright policy during these early Obama administration years. As a 20, I couldn't even legally drink. And I was working through my second degree. I got the second degree, still working at the Weinstein Company, came on full-time at Weinstein, and then started getting part-time a master's degree this time master's in science, communications, minor studies in Homeland Security. I was like 22, 23 thinking, oh, maybe I'll leave entertainment and work in government. So like through this whole like almost 10-year span, just like always having relationships or interests in that space while working in entertainment. And during the time in entertainment, it was like a run of from like the King's Speech on of just like best picture. I worked on The Artist, I worked on all these different movies, and a lot of like the Quentin Tarantino projects. Like Quentin Tarantino did all of his work exclusively with that studio at that time. Yeah. So I was working with all of these great people in the music industry for award-winning soundtracks. I was learning a lot about that business. I was, learning a lot about the movie business. And then, 2017, Me Too, everything just exploded. And all of these allegations came to light. And it was just like, meanwhile, I think I was like, still like maybe 24, 25. And I was like, oh my God, like this place that I was here as like a teenage girl, all this stuff was happening. It was just really freaked me out. And after I left that company in the wake of Me Too, I was still working in music industry. I was still, working for like Lantern Entertainment, then Spyglass Media Group. But all the while, I was doing stuff on the side that had nothing to do with the music industry. I still had my interest in government. I still had my interest in policy. I was doing like volunteer pro bono stuff with like ACLU of Southern California, or like, getting into different activist spaces and kind of parlaying my relationships in the entertainment industry into doing social good. So it kind of came to a head in just the beginning of 2020. Before the pandemic, I was like, I've spent like 10 years now working in this really exciting, interesting, glamorous career path, but it's not actually what I want to do with my life. And this seems like as good a time as any to just like try something new. It's the 20s, baby. It's like a great new exciting decade. Yeah. And then the pandemic happened right after, like maybe 2 weeks after I left my job at a studio as an executive, left my job, kind of sent an email around to like my top 2,000 contacts in the industry. I was like, hey, you know how I always talked about social good and like politics and stuff? That's what I'm doing now. Like, peace out. And I lined up all these meetings, and then March happened, and I was like, oh, okay. So I just started, I've been working as a cushy entertainment gig for 10 plus years, like right out of school, concurrently to school. And I start my own business, and then a pandemic happens. Yeah. And then the summer of 2020 happened. And the BLM movement really entered into a new phase, and the global George Floyd protests, all of these things happened at the same time as I made this big transition into working solely in social impact through Zoran Creative Strategy, my company. Yeah. And suddenly all these people who for years I had talked to about what does working in entertainment even mean? What does it mean to work in culture and then not play a role in society around us? Were coming to me and being like, hey, can we talk to you about all this stuff that you've been talking to about us, about for years? Like all this stuff you always talked about, can we just like have a conversation about that? Yeah. And like recontextualize it in the wake of everything that's happening? And I'm like, sure. But you're gonna have to pay me for it now. I did it for free, but now you pay me for it. And that was kind of my Spark Notes condensed 14 to, I'm 28 now. Yeah. So this is like literally half of my lifetime.
Yes, that's amazing. It's an amazing story. And you and I were introduced by a common acquaintance. Yeah. And you got to tell me a little bit about that. And I was so intrigued by you and on everything you've done in such a short amount of time. And this whole show is about what's that common thread, that thing that is. It surpasses your job. It surpasses the things you studied in school. It's beyond all of that. Even it transcends age. Even as you grow older, that thing that drives you. I'm starting to get a glimpse of that just from your story. But tell everyone what you think is your unique, special, and different. That thing that fuels you.
Oh gosh, this is now where I talk about. Okay, I'm very bad at self-promo, but I think the thing that makes me. Or the thing that's always helped me a lot in every challenge that I've faced from a young age, is my willingness to work really hard. If something is kind of put in front of me, and even if it's not, like I walked into a studio where the job was build up a music catalog, and the music catalog was 25 MP3s on a Macintosh, and I knew nothing about music. I knew nothing about the business. And then within a few years, it became a massive asset that made 1.2 million a year in royalties because I just learned it. And like I didn't know the music industry or copyright, and then I ended up working with Congress people and explaining to people at the U.S. Copyright Office like what music copyright means. So just like I think my willingness to just kind of take on really diverse challenges and not being afraid of being in an environment where I'm not the expert, but if you give me time, I will become really well versed in what is in front of me. So just perseverance and I think willingness to work hard and be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it sounds like it, just the challenges you talked about that you have tackled or thought about for so long. Are any of those the things that right now, I mean, if you had to say, this is the thing I'm digging into, this is the thing that's intriguing me or catching my attention and I'm going to go tackle it, is there one or two things right now that's heavy on your mind?
I think like the first thing I would want to say is that, I'm really new to this social impact space, right? Like that is now my bread and butter. I spend my days like thinking about how do we get the right stakeholders in a room to solve big problems. What I will say is after a year and a half of just observing what 2020 was and working on different projects throughout that year in the social impact field, I will say that, all the problems that we deal with, like from climate change to institutional racism to, bias on the axes of, gender or sexual orientation, all of these problems that we deal with are man-made problems fundamentally, which means there's a man-made solution to every problem. And if you get the right people together, if you build the right coalitions around any issue whatsoever, you can come to some sort of common understanding of what we can do in partnership to make a dent in an issue. So I never think of it as like I am single-handedly taking on something or digging into something. It's more like as I explore this space through my new career path, I'm learning more and more that there is no issue that you could take on that isn't intersectional with something else. So when we talk about, say, institutional racism, we're also talking about environmental racism. We're talking about food deserts. We're talking about fintech and access to financial solutions. Like you go into neighborhoods, like, so without going into specifics of a client I'm dealing with right now, one of the things that I'm looking at for a client is you go into a neighborhood and it's not just, oh, it's poor, oh, there are no jobs here. It's like, people don't have access to food. Yeah. Their drinking water isn't clean. The roads haven't been managed. Their school districts are a mess. Where's the investment? The money is out there. The resources are here, but they're just not distributed in an equitable or even a rational manner. So taking on, fundamental economic structural inequalities is something I'm really interested in. Yesterday, it was like 106 degrees in my neighborhood. Yeah. Like I sweated to get to this studio. Climate change, I think, is that horrible slow motion apocalypse that's happening in the backdrop of everyone's lives. And for some reason, we've become so inured to the urgency that we'll just kind of be like, oh, well, okay. it's so hot and everything's on fire, but this is just the way it is now. So not being passive about the world as it happens around me, I think is what I'm interested and focused on, is like observing what is going on, being sensitive and cognizant of it, and then just being proactive every day in the work that I do to say, we definitely have the resources and the know-how and the people and the talent to deal with this stuff. We just need to figure out the strategy. And that is now what I focus on, is very much, strategic planning around social impact initiatives and treating social impact as a measurable thing, right? Yeah. Because I do notice, or I have noticed, and this might be a little spicy to say, I see people using social impact as almost like a marketing term, as if it's like just like you know, in these challenging times, we care about you. And with 4 easy payments, it's like, okay, buddy. But social impact isn't just, you know, marketing shtick. It's a measurable thing. It is the net positive change you render on an issue or in any area. Net positive change rendered. It's measurable. You can structure it. You can scale it. So that's what I'm interested in, is like figuring out the mechanics of change making and making it accessible and doable for anybody. My goal is that my job won't exist in 10 years because it'll just be so ingrained into everyone's business practice that you don't need people like me. That's my goal, is just to render myself totally unnecessary.
Yeah, that's also my goal, professional obsolescence. I'm with
That's
you.
the term, yeah, thank you. I was like searching for the
I'm on
term.
board, 100%.
Yeah.
Is there somebody for you, though? I mean, you've been doing this from such a young age and thinking about these things, and you know, is there somebody in your life that's inspired you? And you mentioned your family, but anybody that you've seen create that kind of change, that's been able to galvanize lots of people and really go after something and tackle it and make a big impact?
I feel like I would almost be doing people a disservice to try to name any one individual, because actually in my experience, I've met hundreds of people like that.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people. People roll up their sleeves and do great, important, meaningful work every day and don't get the recognition. I could mention a name and you would try to find them and you wouldn't even find them on like Facebook, or you wouldn't even get a sense of what they do just by looking at their branding online. I feel like, you know, we're truly blessed to live in a world where there are so many people who are so willing to do what it takes to make a difference without recognition. So I don't even want to try to, like, I'll talk about how great my parents are and what a good job they did raising me all the livelong day. Like, them I'll name, but I would say that there's like everyday heroes that are just rolling up their sleeves. And if you're someone who's listening to this podcast who's like, oh, I really want to like get involved on homelessness or, you know, food deserts or some sort of issue, the first thing I say to anyone who's interested in making a difference in some way is, you know, look to the people who are already out there helping, right? And you'll be surprised, like, people fall into this trap of thinking that no one is doing the work. People are out there doing the work. All you have to do is just identify them and then just go to them and be like, hey, I want to help. What can I do for you? That's help the helpers, and you'll never run out of people that amaze and inspire. Really.
Yeah, that's really great. And I mean, and I think I love the idea of the people that are waiting to help. What about the people, and I don't know if you've ever had a moment in your life where it just feels too much. It's overwhelming. I think this past year and a half or so, some people have just become kind of numb to all those things around us that are going on, or they've felt a bit helpless. I don't know if you've had one of those moments that you can share, like how you overcame it. But, you know, what do we do for those people?
Yeah, for sure. I think this probably wraps back into my unique, special, different, because for me, I'm just like the mental equivalent of just like a punch. I'm like a human punch where I'll just like keep going, and I don't really have that sense of, oh, this is too hard. I'll just keep on digging at it. So that's just like, but that's how I'm wired. And not everyone is wired that way. I totally understand like burnout and exhaustion and like the emotional labor that people experience, especially if they're like full-time activists. Like, the mental health burden is enormous, and I don't want to diminish that in any way. I would say that if you're someone who like we all, 2020 was the worst year of all of our lives collectively. Like, we all just did 2020. We're all kind of sweating. Now we're just like, okay, 2020, you know. I would say that if you're feeling overwhelmed, understand that even though these issues are massive, right, and really nuanced and complex and really much interlinked and interconnected, in a way, that fact is advantageous to you as an individual, because that means that whatever small impact you make in your local sphere of influence, whatever is your purview to make a difference in, does actually have this multiplying exponential effect in places that you won't even see, because of that interconnectedness of issues, right? So like, people talk a lot about intersectionality, and I feel like folks have a better understanding of what that means, that different issues actually intersect, that is beneficial in terms of taking an action as well, because things are intersectional. So the difference you make in your community without your knowledge will make a difference somewhere hundreds of miles away that you don't even see.
Yeah.
So take heart in that, even if it feels like you're not doing a lot by going out and volunteering at your local homeless shelter, by donating a little bit of money or donating canned food. It adds up. And moreover, just because you're not single-handedly saving the world, you're doing something good for at least one person. If you as a human being are doing a little good for even a handful of people, that's like really precious and valuable. And it should not, you don't need to like say, oh, well, I didn't save the world. Well, you saved somebody. You made someone's day. Like, kindnesses are so precious.
Yes.
And they go so far, farther than you would expect. I've had situations where, you know, I've done something, a kindness for someone, and I'll see them like years later, and they'll say, oh, that thing you did for me, or that thing you said really made a difference on this day in my life. And I was like, I didn't even realize, but the fact that that happened, like, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. So these things make a difference. And they matter. Yeah, everything that we do matters.
Yeah, there's a multiplying effect, and it makes you feel better. You know, I think when you do good things, even if they seem small in those moments, I do think it gives everybody a little bit of those endorphins that we need, and to know that we're trying to make an impact.
Exactly.
I think that's great. Well, I have this part of the show, I warned you already, where I like to ask a random question.
Oh boy.
It's between 1 and 25, so you get to pick the number, and then I get to ask the question.
Oh God. Oh wow, you prepared 25 questions?
I did.
Any hints as to like what is like the most? Oh boy.
Yep.
I'm thinking to like a year in my life that was like special, to see if that will give, because like I am 28, so that's almost all of my life, that 1 to 25.
What's your favorite year?
I'm gonna say like 9.
9. All right. Yeah. Ooh, this is perfect for you, honestly. What is the shift you'd like to see in the world right now?
Like a shift in the circumstances of the world overall, or something about people as they make up the world?
Either one. Yeah, it's up to your interpretation.
Oh God, there's so many ways to unpack that. I guess I wish that people as a whole were a little bit more curious. And that's not to say that people, and I don't want to make a commentary on society, because there's so many different societies we could comment on. But what I mean when I say like I wish people were a little bit more curious is, you know, there's so many things that as we kind of move through life and we build up our social networks, we build up kind of like our space and our lane and our circles and our purview. If you spent like even a little part of your day asking yourself, is I know this is normal for me, but is this normal for real? Like, should it be? Like, are the things that I'm used to, or the things that feel safe and comfortable actually all right? And am I being complacent? And if I were coming from a totally different life perspective, what would I say about the things that I just kind of let slide by me? Would I think that they were okay? I think a good example of this is there was a French writer, Alexis de Tocqueville, who was something of a sociologist. And after the American Revolution, he was, you know, a Frenchman, member of the nobility aristocracy. He was so curious about what these Americans had done out in the boonies on the other side of the world. He went to America and he traveled across this new fledgling nation, and he wrote a book about called Democracy in America. And it's like, even to this day, one of the most insightful reflections on what it means to be an American, from the perspective of this guy who was like, oh, they just had a revolution. I gotta check that out. Like, I gotta see what's up, what's going on with these people. Yeah. And he just went around and he got like such a, you know, some of his prose and his rhetoric, the way he describes the American spirit and the American identity is just so intimate and so revealing that even now, as we go through 2020 and America is going through this crazy chapter, you can read Democracy in America and be like, oh, that's still really insightful and really relevant even today. Like this guy, because he was curious.
Yeah.
And he picked up and he left his homeland and he came over here just to see what was going on, because this was a big thing that had happened.
Yeah.
And he could have just like let it slide by and been like, oh, wow, look at those Americans, they just did something. Instead, he was like, no, I'm really curious about this whole democracy thing they just did. And I got to see it for myself in action. That curiosity, I think, makes a big difference. And it can be really, really insightful and beneficial. And it can help you look at something in a different way. And you leave behind knowledge and insight and wisdom.
Yes.
So that sort of curiosity, I wish everyone kind of practiced in some small way, even every day.
I like that. I like that. And I think, you're not only saying to be curious, you're also talking about breaking down some of your preconceived notions or barriers to possibility. And I think that's wonderful. And it's really good for people to hear that, remind themselves of that. And by the way, the world's going to open up. So if you have some curiosities that you want to pursue, hopefully people will be able to do that soon.
If they can do it safely, yes,
that's
please.
Right. Yes, yes. That's what we want. We want people to get out there. Well, one of the things, you talked about making a small impact. And one of the things we like to do here at See and Free is to highlight organizations that people care about, and see if we can make just a small impact by getting our viewers, one, to be aware of that organization, two, hopefully to donate to them. And the one that you chose, you're also on the board of, the Collective Identity Mentoring Group. So would you please tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. Okay. So the Collective Identity Mentoring is a new Los Angeles-based grassroots organization, and it was founded for Black women and girls, by Black women. So in LA County, the things that Black women and girls specifically experience at this sort of intersection, right, of racism and sexism, and food deserts and all of these different issues, environmental racism. The Collective Identity Mentoring was founded, and it's a new organization. They just got started up really this past year to address these issues, these specific problems and issues that women and girls face. We do mentoring programs for girls ages 13 to 25. We've got a lot of exciting partnerships. Some of them I can't even talk about yet, but you might have heard about us on KCRW very recently. And we're doing work to help support and uplift a community of people that gets, overlooked in LA County, and hopefully we want to, someday scale nationwide. But we're building here in LA, and doing mentorship programs and confabs and excursions, and creating a community of support to center and uplift Black women.
I love it. And so you mentioned scaling this potentially. So if our viewers are watching somewhere else in the world, minimally the nation, how can they get in touch with the group to talk about starting their own chapters?
You know what? Okay, go to. I think I gave the website as well, so we can put everything in the description. So if you go to thecollectiveidentity.org, you can learn a little bit more about our organization. You can reach out to us. We can answer questions. Even myself personally, reach out to me if you have questions about how to support. I really love talking to people about this work and the nonprofit space in general.
Wonderful. And so if you are watching this, because we're going to, at the very end of the show, we're going to put up a QR code that you can snap a picture of. And if you're listening to us, you can go to the website that Sienna mentioned. So please take time to do that. We'll show it again at the end of the show. Donate for sure. Consider mentoring for second. And then if you want to think about how to scale this organization, please reach out to Sienna. We'll have her LinkedIn information on at the end as well. So what's next for you?
Oh, gosh. I used to know this question off the top of my head when I was a kid, because I would just be like, I'll get a degree and then I'll have a career and then I'll do this. I've already had one career and now I'm starting a new one. So I think I'm just going to continue to build the work that I'm doing in social impact. I'm also getting my now 4th college degree. I'm getting my executive MBA from UCLA.
Yep.
So go Bruins. And I'm really excited about that. I start in the fall. Personally, for me, I want to continue to learn new things, meet new people, and continue to find folks that are ready and willing to just roll up their sleeves and get to work and make a difference in the world, whatever form that means or that takes for them. But building coalition and finding fellowship with other people is just kind of my sole focus nowadays. Like every day I get up and I get to have amazing, inspiring conversations with different folks, like you included.
Yes.
So this is now, this conversation is an extension of my overall mission in life nowadays.
Yes. Well, I am super glad I got to meet you as well. And I'm glad that we got connected. I'm glad you came on the show and shared your story. I think you're an extremely inspiring person. Can't wait to see what those new things are that you're going to go do. And I would love to be part of the circle that helps you do them and help make an impact in the world. So thank you for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
It was so fun.
Anytime. Come by anytime. I'll take you.
I'm down.
Good.
Listen.
I love it. Well, that's a wrap for today's CN Free Studio. Please visit us at www.cnfreestudio.com. We are on every single audio podcast channel you can think of. You can even talk to Alexa if you have one at home and ask her to pull up a CN Free Studio, or watch us on YouTube or LinkedIn. Thanks for visiting. Come back next time.